Tough questions, honest answers, real talk with the City of Oshawa.
Hi, everybody. It's Dan Carter, the mayor for the great city of Oshawa and the host of Real Talk. I'm excited to welcome you to this unique podcast, and I hope will inspire authentic conversations and take on topics that are important to you. My hope is that we address issues that are impacting our province, our country, from affordability to challenging housing markets to the homelessness, healthcare, the opiate crisis, and the political environment. Oh, yeah, and maybe some tariffs at the same time. I know that our guests over the next year will bring different ideas and different perspectives to issues that we are facing. So let's get started with today's guest. I want to welcome Daniel Arbour. He is the president and CEO of the Oshawa Power Group of Companies. And Daniel, it's great to be able to have you here. You've been with Oshawa Power for how long now?
Approaching 2 years now.
2 years, it's gone like that.
Been a flash. It's been an absolute flash and fantastic.
For our listeners that are listening today, and I want to step back because this is a new role for you, but you come from a different background, energy associated, but a lot different. What did you do before you joined Oshawa Power Group of Companies?
Yeah, I guess you could say I'm energy agnostic, but I was actually working for Royal Dutch Shell. So Shell in the US, Canada, and Europe as well. So selling molecules instead of electrons, I suppose. And so I've pivoted from doing that to electricity, and I'll probably never want to look back. Actually, it's been fantastic, and it's going to be a great ride.
It must be interesting for you, especially at the time that we're in right now, with the tariffs going on, debate about energy. You've heard the Premier talk about Michigan and the power going to Michigan and what we can do in regards to retaliation, but everybody's kind of stepped back from the brink. There's a lot of misinformation that is out there when it comes to energy, and I know that you've been part of big conversations across North America. It's not as easy as turning it on, turning it off, is it?
No, turning it on and off actually becomes a federal jurisdiction at that point, so it can be. It's not as easy as hitting a switch. There's transmission lines, there's dependencies that need to be done. We can't necessarily turn off of our energy to send the electricity down, but it can be done. It can be done, but it is probably something that we'd want to think about before doing. And certainly for the other side of the coin, my past, the oil and gas, is certainly something that it fuels Canada's economy, and we can't necessarily just do. We've gotten ourselves in a dependency to send our product down south.
There's a lot of talk about Canada needs to get this pipeline going. We need to figure out a diversification plan in regards to our products going around the world. Is there an easy fix to this, or is it a lot more complex than most want to kind of presume?
The obvious fix, and one that has been proposed in the past, is to have access to markets either through the Pacific, potentially through the north, and then also eastward as well. That involves either eastward flipping lines. So we have a line called Line 9 that comes all the way to Ontario, actually flows through the U.S., but comes to Ontario, but currently sends finished product from Quebec down to Ontario. You'd potentially want to flip that to send crude to be able to send it out to St. Lawrence. That would be the east. I don't know if that's optimal. It's closer right now to potentially send it westward. That being said, that's been tried in the past, and there has been some trouble getting it off the ground, we'll say, with a little bit of red tape or a lot thereof if you were in industry at the time. And then there's also, sending more down south, which obviously is not necessarily what the listeners and everyone were hoping for. It is a potential to go through British Columbia from Alberta. We do need to work with First Nations to have that done, as well as the province of British Columbia and everyone else that is along that route, to ensure that they are comfortable with that pipeline being built. They're inherently safe. Right now, there are trains that head down from Alberta down to Vancouver every day along pristine coastlines, along the river, full of diesel. I would argue that that's probably a less safe way to transport, because there are derailments that happen every day, actually, in Canada. Mini ones, small ones, but they happen all the time. And we certainly saw what happened in Quebec quite a few years back when there was an explosion and a horrific accident that took many lives. So I don't want to always point to that, but certainly on the pipeline debate, it might be an opportunity for us to come together as a nation. We were talking about it earlier before we came on, the provincial walls that we've put up across the country. We can kind of talk through that and you do what's right for Canada. So a little bit interesting coming from a utility president CEO to talk about oil and gas.
It's got to be beneficial because of your background. You understand the file itself, because the file includes oil, gas, wind, electricity, nuclear, all these kind of things. Having that that kind of diversity in your background has got to be very helpful, not only for the Oshawa Power group of companies, but also you're able to see where challenges may lie and how we can work together to be able to solve them, especially in complex times like right now.
Absolutely. It's actually, it serves me well to avoid confirmation bias. I get into a lot of rooms with peers, either in the past or present, and I hear a lot of confirmation bias, or groupthink, if you will, where we will speak to a topic and say, this is absolutely true, this will happen. And I kind of straddle the line of both sides, is understanding both perspectives a little bit easier. So yeah, I can certainly see that.
So why the change? Why was it a challenge in your life? Was it something that you were fascinated with?
Well, you have the golden handcuffs at some point, right? And 17 years at Shell is a long time. They're going through a lot of changes. And certainly my then 5-year-old daughter was debating me with what I was doing, learning in school at the time that, electricity is good, oil and gas is bad. I argued with her, and I couldn't win an argument with her. And I went in circles trying to understand what I was doing. So here I am. I think it's a really good debate to have with everyone and even yourself about what you want to do. But I actually wanted to broaden my perspective on energy and kind of my macro view of the world. Working in the past for Shell actually was a very good company. They actually own the largest charging infrastructure in Europe. People don't know that. They have offshore wind. They have a lot of green programs, or they did. They're scaling some back now, but they still continue to have a very green mandate. It's a Eurocentric oil and gas company. And arguably, they're actually a gas and oil company. They produce more gas than oil. It's one that customers see. It's a brand that everyone knows. It's one of the most recognized brands. I wanted to work for one that was Oshawa, that everyone something that I'd have, excellent control and a scope of sphere within a smaller community, but also just as important. That's that local versus global kind of role.
And I guess it opens up your eyes in regards to innovation. I mean, innovation has got to be a part of the challenges with energy, about the environment. Everybody's looking for solutions. Having that background now in your role as a CEO, that helps bring different ideas and a different set of lenses. I always say, I thought that was a really great point that you brought up, these kind of biases that come into these conversations. With this kind of scope about having that type of knowledge, you're really open to different ideas and different ways of looking at things. And I think that that's wonderful. So how is it that you're looking at this role, especially with Oshawa Power, as a opportunity to be able to see how the diversity can happen within your role and responsibility in this company right now? And how are you seeing the innovative ideas that you could bring forward to Oshawa Power?
Yeah, and honestly, one of the great ones here is around transportation. Obviously, Royal Dutch Shell is around transportation, and something that we can do a little bit more of in the group of companies is to support transportation. My last role was actually building a mobile energy infrastructure for Shell, and it was gas, diesel, but also mobile electric. And so when we take mobile EV and we kind of parlay that over to what we can do here in Oshawa, is actually the physical infrastructure, getting our grid ready, trying to innovate through potentially doing something around mobile EV for the area, for the region, but even for transit. That's something that we can bring to it. But it's more the ideas and challenging the status quo. When I came over to the utility, I always joke with the leadership team. They would say, "Oh, this will happen soon. This is happening soon, and this is imminent." And after like a few months, I thought, well, what is soon? And then everyone's idea of soon was 6 months, maybe 18 months, 12 months from now. In communications, obviously, it was like now and yesterday, but everyone else was a little bit more on the laggard side. And I thought, no, if it's soon, it's within a month or two, within at least this quarter. And if it's not, you have to give me an exact date. So the group really has changed and become more commercial. They're already very innovative. The industry is going through a massive generational change right now. There's a generational challenge on energy right now. So I've come into this at a good time, actually. And there's a lot of young people actually that should be excited to get into this industry right now. It's happening in our region, in our city even. And just being on we'll say the vanguard of what's changing. I think we've talked about it in the past, you and I, and maybe even at our AGM, was around, you used to be able to order a coffee one way. It was coffee black out of a pot. And now you can go to, say, a Starbucks or any of your baristas anywhere nearby, and you can order it by 16 million different ways with many different flavors and however you want. So it's thinking about how we energize both not just through poles and wires, but how we also have batteries. We have solar, we have wind, and we've recently secured some pretty innovative products on wind, and we're deploying solar as well, both with the city, but also with commercial customers in the region.
What does this mean in regards to your infrastructure? And has that been one of the big challenges that you had to look at as coming in as a CEO about massive changes happening within your industry? I'll give one example. So I have an electric vehicle at home. I have a charging station inside of my home, but I live in a neighborhood that was established in 1960. I'm going to presume that the power requirements for that community were based upon what was built at that particular time. But the new introduction of EVs are playing a significant role, and more people are putting these power stations in their home. Do you, as the leading of this group of companies, is this one of the infrastructure things you've got to start thinking about? Is how are we going to support that grid so that if everybody on the street, not just Dan and his neighbor have a power station, but everybody on the street is going to pull power in this way, we need to do something in regards to the infrastructure. Is that something you guys are taking under consideration?
Yeah, certainly. An old mantra in the utilities has been basically run it to failure. You run your system to failure. Those are your transformers to failure, which isn't a bad thing to do because you want the longevity of those items. But if people do all plug in, for example, like consumers can take a choice of having a full EV, which is what it sounds like you have, or what I have is the plug-in hybrid. Obviously straddling both worlds here from past to present. And I'll be looking at EVs as I look to get a new vehicle. So that's just level one. Yours is the level 2 charger. It pulls more. It's like having a dryer on while you're charging it. Potentially even, we'll say, half a home running at that point because it takes quite a bit to run. So yes, it does pull off of a transformer. And indeed, what was built in your neighborhood as well as much of Oshawa was built off of a system that wasn't expecting to have EVs necessarily. So as we go through our reviews and our cycles, and we call them cost serves, we need to put together a capital plan or a distribution service plan that is adequate to upgrade, but also look forward to what would be coming down the pike. So as we're looking up and we're building out in North Oshawa as well, or if we're redeveloping in the core, how do we upgrade our infrastructure in those places to support more people plugging in? We've actually had an increase over the 2 past years of 225% in Oshawa of EV vehicles, but we don't necessarily know if you get an EV charger and your 2 neighbors do. Nobody calls the utility and says, "Hey, I'm getting an EV."
So should we have a way of registering it, Daniel, so that it helps you be able to look at the infrastructure itself and say, how do you address that issue?
Yeah, we do have a way of registering with us online. We're looking at even right down to the meters. So right now, I had just been in a meeting last week where we did deep dives on meters. So we're going out to market. Our meters are quite old. They have this is the other issue. Those transformers have 30 to 40 year lifespans on them. When I plug something, when we replace our transformers ground mounts or what you see on the poles, now it might be enough for today, but in 10 years, 20 years from now, will it be enough? Will it be big? And will it be regret spend? And so we really have to think about that.
And I was going to say, is that part of your role and responsibility now is to think not just for today, but even 7 years from now to be able to say, holy smoke.
Yeah, all utilities certainly have to do this. And we run in these 5-year, capital program cycles bound by regulation. So there might be an opportunity for the regulator to be more forward-looking instead of regulating the past and allowing for some, we'll say, preparation of the grid rather than reactive administration of the grid and capital work. So certainly there's opportunity there, but it is something we're doing. And specifically around metering is picking the right meter where we can actually glean great information from it. It can know if you're plugging in. It can know if you're running your dryer. It will know if we need to throttle back or throttle up certain homes or not. There are meters we'll call on grid edge technology that would allow us to, or you to say, get a solar panel and then basically substitute that energy that would be coming from the grid at the right times, at peak times. Because right now, Ontario has a very, very clean grid. It is 80% plus green because nuclear we consider green, hydro, solar, wind, we have all these things. We do have what we call peaker plants, and as the economy grows, we have to use them more often. Those are those gas plants, which are very easy to turn on and off. Those nuclear plants, they really can't be turned on and off. They just hum. And that's great because it's a good base load. But we, what's helpful are these grid edge incentives or or technologies that allow consumers to also take the power in their hands. It's behind the meter, we call it, but basically, supplement their load with their own technology. And, there's meters that we can put in place that will allow us and the consumer to kind of take that control.
And I would imagine this also answers a question for consumers too about their responsibility. Many of them are very environmentally conscious and they want to do what they can. So this is also a way that they can participate.
I have to say, for the people that are listening in Oshawa, we have a very resilient distribution grid. We have 99.99 reliability. We're very strong. It's very well engineered. And I'm happy to inherit that. That's not because of me. It's because of the past and the 130 years it's been operating very well. But it's we don't have a lot of outages, luckily. But we, and I've got to knock on wood because I think the guys will say I jinxed them now. The grid here in Oshawa is quite strong and resilient. So anything we can do to just enhance that and make it more robust and consistent is what we're trying to do.
That being said, I mean, you've got teams that are assisting other communities as we speak right now because of an ice storm. And that's out of your control. You could have a great infrastructure, but if you have a weather event like that and you have 150-year-old trees that are coming down on power lines, that changes the game altogether. But I'm presuming that transformation of lines above ground, especially in the new communities, are below ground, I presume.
Yeah, a lot of our we'll say what carries the transmission grade, we'll say level that comes across is above ground. We'll put it below ground. We're around 50-50 above or below ground right now. Yeah. Obviously, the core is below ground. Any of the new communities that don't want poles or are being developed, or we'll say in the suburbs, those are also below ground. But to get to the edge of there is usually above ground. We do have a program, vegetation management, that we make sure that we kind of, everyone's seen the guys going around and gals going around and cutting the trees to make sure that if there's an ice storm, if there's a wind event, often, actually it was very windy last night, there's branches that'll come down and hit the lines. And sometimes they hit the lines and pull off and it'll snap back on and you'll have a flicker of light. And that's usually what's happened. But if a heavy load kind of stays on the line, it'll pull off.
So I want to talk about, at one time it was Oshawa Power and Utility Company, and now it's Oshawa Power Group of Companies. The size of the organization compared to other communities, it seems like we're in a unique position. Some of the other communities are being gobbled up by other organizations to make them bigger and bigger and bigger. But the Oshawa Power Group of Companies is really unique in how it operates and how it provides services. When you look at the environment and you're building a company right at this particular time, very diverse in regards to what you're trying to build, is that where we need to be, in your opinion? Do we need to be, this company is unique, it serves a large geographic area, a large population, but it also provides other opportunities to be able to expand the business model itself. Is this a good place to be, in your opinion?
Yeah, I do. That's why I'm here. We have our group of companies. We have Oshawa Power, which everyone knows the brand. Everyone knows the logo. They know that's the utility, especially those in Oshawa know what it is. And it's been around a very, very long time. Coupled with that, there's Durham Broadband, which we also run a fiber line along the lines. We're able to provide dark fiber and commercial fiber to commercial customers. So that one is, we'll say, not an energy play, but certainly something that helps with telecommunications. And then we have Enerforge. And Enerforge is that, we'll say, utility adjacent enterprise that allows us to have programs in place to either create, manage, or serve the energy industry. So we actually do have an RNG plant that we run at the Toronto Zoo. Takes a organic matter and creates a renewable natural gas and then creates energy for the zoo, which has been a great program for the zoo. And then we have wind, we have solar. We also operate at the largest a district energy system in Toronto, which is Toronto Community Housing, which has been fantastic.
I think it's at Regent Park, isn't it?
Yeah, Regent Park.
Fascinating, innovative project.
Oh, there's all of that kind of stuff. So what we're doing now is we're looking at more utility adjacent services that might support, we'll say, the core fundamental strength of the legacy Oshawa Power that we can parlay over. Now, these have to be separate companies. They operate separately. They're different under different management. I happen to have visibility of both, but I have to be very careful as to how people speak to each other because they are very separate and unique. So we do want to take some of the expertise that we learn and we know and offer those services. But I think those are opportunities. So for example, EV chargers, utilities aren't allowed to own EV chargers. We can generally facilitate these type of projects, but they're done through private firms.
Why? Is that just legislative?
Possibly to allow for more competition and not regional monopolies and have maybe the strongest player win.
Right.
What we saw in Europe, as an example, is, like I just said, Shell had ended up having the largest charging infrastructure in Europe, and because the utilities had a similar handcuff, we'll say, to them, and they were a little bit slow to the post. And they've obviously had stronger EV adoption. We're starting to see that now, but I would say that there are certain lines of business that are meant to be for private firms. So there are a lot of other utilities that have these private firms around that have the unregulated arm, if you will, that allow them to offer services outside of the poles and wires business, which is meant to be safe, reliable, cost-effective for the consumer. And we do not want our decisions on one side to impact the rates of the other side. So they really do have to be decoupled from each other.
There's legislation to kind of,
yes.
In your opinion, based upon your experience, is that helpful? Does that help us move the EV initiative forward fast enough, or does it hinder it?
I've been fairly vocal to the regulator. I feel like, at least on EV, we have the knowledge of our grid. We have the knowledge of where things can be placed. We should be at least more actively involved in it rather than just a checkpoint on a deployment to see if it can be done. To participate in that market might actually accelerate the adoption, in my view, or the confidence of the consumer. Because when the consumer, we're the closest to the customer. If we take a customer back view of things, which is what I had done always at Shell, right? We didn't drill a well if the customer wasn't buying the product. So you go all the way to the pumps and all the way back to the pump jacks, we'll say. We need to come back to the consumer, of which Oshawa Power and other distributors are the closest, and make them feel comfortable. They come to us. They usually email us. What do I do to get an EV charger? What do I do outside of a dealership? What can I do for solar? What can I do? So those that are on the vanguard, we'll say, of doing that, that want to have greener tech, they generally come to their utility first. And if we can point them in the right direction, often it's to a third party or potentially someone else. That's helpful. But if we were able to participate a little bit more, especially on one that is so fundamentally important to the province, where we've been investing in EV batteries, we've been investing in minerals up north, we're starting to invest in minerals up north. We want to have an EV infrastructure. We've indicated anyways as a province that we want to be leading on that. To really have that adoption is very important. Provinces that are ahead a little bit allow the utilities to play in that space in some respect. I had come from Quebec, and Quebec, for example, has a great deployment of units.
I was going to say, because in Quebec, it seems that they're ahead of the curve in regards to EVs and the companies that support that. And I'm wondering, how is it that they were so far ahead and we're so far behind?
They might have taken that provincial focus a little earlier. They have a clean grid as well, so they can lean on that. They are constrained at this point, like anyone else that has any kind of growth, but certainly they did support a lot of R&D and deployment in that space, and the government did certainly support that. And Hydro-Quebec's a monolithic organization. It's a little bit different than we have here, but that doesn't mean the coordination can't be the same.
Daniel, what's the biggest challenge you have as the CEO of this great organization that has such a historical track record? But I mean, what is the biggest challenge now? Is it infrastructure? Is it technology? Is it diversity of services? Is it making sure that the company is able to have diversification within its business model to be able to compete and make sure that it continues to be able to deliver these?
I was going to say, is yes a valid answer? I would say yes to all of those. But for me, it's making sure that we have the best service for our customers. And our customers are either commercial, they're residential, they're third parties, they're our partners. So we have a new vision, mission, values that we have launched. We have our pillars, our grid strategy that we want to ensure that we're supporting. That goes from the regulated side, which is making sure that we're more operationally effective and that we can keep costs down.
Just talk about the regulated just for a moment, because I don't know if our listeners understand the framework around regulatory framework, where you have a set of rules you have to follow. You just don't make this stuff up. There's a whole process, is there not?
There's very strong rules, and we adhere to them quite well. We actually perform very well against them. We are one of the lowest cost utilities in the province. Of 57 utilities in the province, we might be in the least expensive 3, which means we've been able to run our utility very effective. We've been running it very efficiently and very safely with, like I said earlier, a really strong reliability. So we've been doing things well. It doesn't mean that we can always maintain it at the same staffing level or at the same rate, because we do need to start to, Oshawa's actually growing quite a lot. And this is your fault because you're doing such a good job attracting business to the community. But we want to be part of that. And, Metrolink's coming through. There's a lot of work that's happening. And so we actually do need to ramp up our skills and expertise, both on the engineering front, on the poles and lines group. So that's on the regulated sphere of what we can control. So there's a lot of work yet to be done. And I'm trying to balance that with the strategy of keeping us leading, not to fall behind, because of the 57 utilities, many of them are very small, and a few of them will say there's a top 5 that are very, very large, like a Toronto Hydro, an Electra, and we all know Hydro One. So those are very large utilities. They come with themselves other problems, right? And complexities. And we're able to work within our box, which actually allows us to be very nimble, very quick on technology. We can pivot quickly. We can pilot things very fast. And that ultimately supports the consumer and the rate base here in Oshawa.
It's interesting to be in this position at this particular time, especially as not only political issues are changing, consumer changes are happening, innovation is happening, and diversity is happening within the industry itself. As you look forward and your team looks forward, how do you think Oshawa Power Group of companies can continue to be in that leadership pack and continue to be able to deliver the type of things you talked about, the reliability aspect, the profitability of the organization? They always say being number one is great. The problem being is number one also brings a whole bunch of problems because you got to keep outdoing yourself year after year.
Yeah, it's hard to beat our reliability. So, we'll keep that consistent. We'll knock on wood for to avoid big storms. But what we need to really focus on is our operational effectiveness on the regulated side. As a group of companies, we need to be supporting the region, right? We can do more for the region. The region's growing quite rapidly out here on the east side. The west has had quite a boon, but that's, a decade or two in the past, continues, but the east is now starting to grow a lot. So we have to be able to support the region, and outside of, we'll say, the boundaries of Oshawa, that's the group of companies. That's where we can offer our services and products and really be that reliable, trusted source of energy. So we actually, part of the Durham Climate Roundtable, we are participating in that. We're supporting it. We're helping and supporting in cities' energy management, more than just energy, but also like heat mapping. So there's heat mapping for cities. That is very important. So it's using heat more effectively to heat buildings, to heat products. So a small example of that would be, if we got a data center. Well, a data center is a lot of suck-on power, but it also creates a lot of heat, and that heat can actually be distributed to other buildings and start to be useful instead of just wasted. So we like to be curious, as you say, right, and not just and stop things, but we're looking for that kind of opportunity to support it. The district energy sources to be able to, as you get major development and big buildings that come up, they create inherently a lot of heat. And how can you distribute that through, an urban center? This is very, very big conversation actually in the Hamilton area, but also in Europe. So, and this happens actually, Toronto has a system that was built during wartime that still operates that way.
It's amazing. I was at an opening just recently of a 500,000 square foot facility, and they talked about how they were utilizing the heat that came off the air conditioner to be able to make sure that the pipes under the shipping and receiving area was utilized to make sure that in the wintertime, they were able to melt the ice and be able to make sure it was safe. I thought that was really innovative when you think about it, of utilizing the heat that you're generating anyways and utilizing it in another way.
We have gas companies that provide heat. This is a possible way to avoid having to switch to gas, but also, oddly enough, we have these heat pumps, and that's electrically run. And so, it's a weird name because the heat pump's actually air conditioners as well, so they maybe have to change the branding on that. But a heat pump is both, but it's electricity. So my view is there's still such a huge draw for electricity that we need to find every way to provide energy to these buildings. So what you just gave as an example is a fantastic example of they still draw energy, and what's great is that they're actually able to, we can support more businesses in the community now because they're actually saving on that particular function, right? So that's a good thing. We're going through, an energy minister, Minister Lecce, has said, 75% more energy by 2050 in Ontario is what we're needing. And in the Oshawa and the Durham region are not, are subject to, we need more energy as well. So it's not just us, it's not just our neighboring utilities, but it's also those transmission lines and also the development of new energy.
One of the things I find really fascinating about our conversation, you could talk about the what do you call the poles and the wires and your traditional business. What really I'm really fascinated about is the non-traditional business that you're starting to kind of diversify. Dark fiber. Dark fiber is going to play a significant role, but you have infrastructure that is available to be able to bring technology to communities in a very efficient way. That's got to be exciting for your team.
It's very exciting. We take that opportunity. In fact, we're building out dark fiber now for new neighbors that are coming in and new customers that are coming into Oshawa. So there's a lot of big industrials that want their own kind of lines, and we're able to do that. And we're able to do that effectively and at a very reasonable price, we'll say, for them, because otherwise that would be a very expensive build to have the fiber come out. And it is really exciting. I really do enjoy it. I think that there's a lot of opportunities in that space. To support the provincial needs, the regional needs, and the city's needs, and the residential and industrial customers that sit within that need. So there's a lot of opportunity beyond poles and wires. We look at, we're supporting the Durham Region Transit with their new bus depots. Unfortunately, there was an incident there with the Oshawa. The depot had a fire, but we were able to pivot quite quickly. Again, our size of our organization, and those buses are now able to run off EV, and we're supporting them through the region, and that's what that unregulated group can do. And we're supporting buses. We're going to support even more. Really looking forward to continuing that journey for the region. But beyond that, we also have recently signed up a license, an exclusive license with an EOCycle, which is a Canadian-built wind turbine. There's only one. That's the one, and it's built in Quebec. It's in Montreal, and they're deployed in the U.S. and Europe, but not in Canada, because they generally wind while as a footprint is the per square foot the most power you can get, right? Because it doesn't take as much as solar or as nuclear. Is an expensive still technology, and so it does rely on some grants which are now available, grants and tax credits that are available. But these are smaller wind turbines. We'll play within the scope that we can play. I'm not going to build those big ones. Yeah. If you've ever driven to Windsor, those are big projects, and we have to really be modest with what we have. But we're able to sell in these 30 kilowatt, 90 kilowatt hour wind turbines that can support municipalities, industry, farming communities all across Canada with that wind power. And then they're able to come off the grid. And if they're able to come off the grid, that supports the utility to move that energy somewhere else and then grow the economy again even more. And we still need power, right? So on top of that, we still need more energy.
And as technology, and I mean AI or any of these other things are going to use a massive amount of power. And so that also puts a lot of strain on what you're doing. That's changing dramatically. Even as we as a city continue to innovate and we've got new technologies are coming in, that's a power requirement for us to be able to kind of secure, and it has to be dependable. And so that puts pressure on your organization. I want to ask you one last thing. One is you're a young guy. You come from a really interesting background. You're in this role and responsibility now. The talent that is necessary as an organization that, because you're diversifying so rapidly, it can't be just so singular focus. You must have to have a wide talent pool that you have to draw from. Is that a challenge in regards to, because your competitive edge has to be your people and the way they think and how they bring different ideas to the table? That's got to be where your competitive edge is, because, regulated, what you've got to do. Non-regulated is where really fascinating work is happening. Regulated is poles and wires and delivering a traditional system. But attracting the right talent to be able to kind of see the future has got to be a challenge. So are you having that opportunity to be able to attract that kind of talent?
I think so. I think our new vision and strategy for the group has actually really parlayed well into attracting new talents from, on the unregulated side, we've gotten people from the mining sector. We have them from consultancies that have worked in green tech in the past. On the technology side, we are starting to see more and more need for coders. We have people that are able to support us on the technology side to secure our utility as a whole. But as the utility side actually is quite interesting. I do want a diverse group. So while it is 130 years, it's an old technology, it's very reliable, it's very consistent. I actually do like new ways of thinking, but also mixed with those who have been around a long time. I have a really diverse team. I have a really savvy team. Some that have, we have a young team, but we have some that have been around for 30 years in the industry that are able to bring that to the table. And then I can ask why? Why do we do it that way? And then, ask them a few times, I don't know, we've always done it that way. Is there another way? And someone will say a comment, and you'll get a great conversation happening at the table. I have some that have come from the regulator that are able to come over and sit on the other side and say, listen, this is how this operates. This is how we should do it this way, but also have a different kind of mindset as to why it's important to do certain things a certain way, right? I'm like gung ho and let's go, and they can hold me. They can kind of throttle me back and in a good way and ensure that we're going in the right direction. And if I have someone in the room, it's because I want them in the room. So I like people speaking their opinion. And if you have everyone that thinks the same as you, you're probably not going to get anywhere. So I mostly have people that are very comfortable with disagreeing with me. They're very comfortable with giving me their opinion because it's a free to speak your mind environment. And that's really what we're bringing. And I think the really great advantage is that we have great colleges and universities in Oshawa. And so we're trying to partner. We are partnering and we continue to try to partner with them. I think there's a really big need, frankly, for the people on the tools that work the lines. Yeah. There's going to be a big exodus of that community, and we need to backfill that throughout the province. Throughout the country, actually. It's a big need. And so even right down to the core of our Alliance persons, we have an opportunity to work with the colleges to build something really good. And the universities are great for engineering. They've been very good for computer science. A lot of our technologies that we're needing to get into, because like I said earlier, those meters, while on the side of your house, not so glamorous for the past 20 years, are becoming computers in and of themselves for us to be able to monitor, track, and then, assist and add value. We absolutely are looking to attract more talent. And frankly, we have Ontario Power Generation moving to Oshawa as well, their new head office. They're also they'll bring that collective energy to the community and that talent to the community, and it'll draw even more to the city, even more to the region. I think the region chair says often we're the energy capital of Canada. We do have several nuclear plants in the region. We now have OPG here. We have 3 utilities operating. We're in a good spot. I think we're really well placed here, and I'm really excited about the diversity of the team that I have and continue to grow.
I find it really fascinating, and I'll tell you why I asked that question is because I was in a conversation with some executives at General Motors, and I said, you're in the automobile business. They said, we're in the technology business that provides automobiles. I mean, it's because their technology is playing a role in regards to how we move people around, how people are moving in patterns, how road conditions are. Technology is playing a significant role in regards to their business. And at one time, they were an automobile company that built cars. They're a tech company that are building automobiles now. And you're in the very same thing. So that diversity of talent is a component of success that Oshawa Power can build on.
Even I was at a conference the other week, and Ford was presenting, and GM actually was there as well, but Ford had been on the docket, and they were talking about how they could, with the right meter and with the right charger, they can actually send energy back into the grid from their batteries. So they're not only just technology companies, they're battery, and the Tesla, the same thing. When other EVs, they are able to actually support your home during an outage. If you have that connection, it's happening. It's not. It's kind of really on the edge now, but it's going to happen as more and more of this is adopted, which is great.
Your diversity is helping the organization, and I'm grateful that you're leading the organization. I've found this conversation really fascinating. I just want to say thank you very much, not only sharing your past, but also what you're doing today, what the company is doing, and how you're trying to really diversify and then answer those questions, both on the environment and also about the economy at the same time, and really finding that balance. I also find it really fascinating about the kind of diversity that's happening within your organization to be able to attract talent and be able to answer the questions that many of us may not have answers for today, but your team is looking forward. So Daniel, a real pleasure having you on the show, and I thank you very much for it. Like I say, I love authentic conversations. I love having different viewpoints, and I think you've brought a lot to the show today. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We want you to keep the conversation going. Of course, Real Talk Oshawa, you can subscribe through Spotify and Apple. What I'm going to ask you to do is keep the conversation going. Ask those inquisitive questions because we are facing challenging times. I'm Dan Carter. Till next time, keep the conversation going. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day, everybody.